This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Write On, showcasing the work of Otago Southland writers. I'm Beverly Martens. Join me for news and interviews with local writers on the second Wednesday of every month from noon till 1 and replayed the following Sunday at 1 p.m. Write On is brought to you by the Otago Southland branch of the New Zealand Society of Authors and kindly supported by the great team at the University Bookshop.
What do you want to be when you grow up? They say you are what you read, and the University Bookshop can help you be whoever you want to be. Do you want to be an athlete? Then sit down with an inspiring sports biography. Do you fancy yourself as a detective? We have a grisly lineup of murder mysteries waiting just for you. Do you aspire to be the world's greatest chef? We have cookbooks to tantalise your taste buds. Do you want to celebrate your inner child? Play up in our fabulous children's room. The University Bookshop, helping you decide what you want to be when you grow up.
This is Write On, the Otago Southland branch of the Society of Authors monthly show about writers and writing with me, Beverly Martens. Now, they say that you should always give a job to a busy person because that means it will get done and it'll get done well. My featured guest this month exemplifies that adage. Dr. Lynley Edmeades is in turn a poet, an essayist, an editor, a lecturer, an awards judge, a writing course coordinator and a deep thinker. So to do justice to all those hats, and I'm sure I've even missed some of them, I've done a two-part interview with Lynley. First, we're going to take a deep dive into her latest book, Hiding Places. Want to know how it came about and the fact that it's going to be launched next week, which is fantastic. And then after the break, we focus on her professional life, and I'm saying that in inverted commas, as the editor, because of course her writing is equally professional. But her professional life is as the editor of the prestigious literary journal Landfall, along with her teaching roles with the English and Linguistics Department at the University of Otago. So let's get into it now and hear Lynley talking about her new book, Hiding Places. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome Lynley Edmeades, a woman of many, many hats, as well as a poet. She's an editor, an academic, a literary judge, a lecturer, a book launcher, and so it goes on. But for now, what I'd really love to talk to you about, Lynley, is the imminent launch of Hiding Places, which is your fourth book. Two of your previous poetry collections were longlisted for the Ockhams and received various accolades, so we're all looking forward to this. This is a little bit different, this book, isn't it? Can you tell us about it, please?
Yeah, so I just dropped the bomb. Kia ora, Beverly. I just dropped the bomb to Beverly that it's not a book of poems. It's really not. It's a book of fragments. You could call them prose poems, I guess. But it's very much made up of pieces. I didn't know I was writing it, and I think I probably couldn't have written it if I'd tried. It took shape over the course of the first few years of my son's life. It starts when I was pregnant with him. So it's loosely about becoming a mother.
And he's what age now?
He's almost 6.
Yeah, I thought he was 5. Yeah. So that's a long gestation, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a long gestation, but hopefully worth it. And it also riffs a lot on Tribby King. After my son was born, I looked into a lot of the foundations of Plunkett. Lots of, sleep training advice that we were given, my partner and I, and the kind of insanity that I was sent into, which is the product of not sleeping, really, but also just the neurosis of becoming a parent for the first time. So I guess as an academic, I kind of put on my academic hat and went, well, what is this thing? Why are we told to do it like this? I'm going to dig deeper and find out.
So research, basically. That's your academic hat, isn't it? It's always research.
Yeah. Research into Plunkett. And then there's threaded through this is also, it's a kind of unsent love letter to a writer called Kate Schrader, who I found before my son was born, but then I kind of I just kept reading her books, and she was a bit of a lifeline for me. So I started writing to her as a kind of like, what do I do now?
And I'm not familiar with her, and I'm not sure that all listeners will be either. So can you give us some context about her?
Yeah, she's a really interesting American writer. She probably came of age as a writer in the kind of blogosphere. So she's written, her kind of breakthrough book was a book called Heroines, and it was about the wives of the modernist writers. But she did it in a way that was like kind of ethnography. So she was writing about herself reading these texts and doing this kind of detective work, which kind of she's pushed herself into this area, which is probably auto theory, which is something I've tried to kind of question as I've been writing this book. Is my work auto theory? What is it? And she just plays with genre in such a beautiful way. And I think I just found kind of salvation in that because, on one book's called Drifts, a novel, and it's clearly not a novel. It's just her fragments of her thinking. And I guess the early motherhood was just such a mess that I couldn't carry a long narrative. I couldn't carry a thread. So I just started writing, and these fragments kind of came in various bursts. And that got me thinking about, I thought I was writing a book of essays when I started, but I couldn't do long form. And so I started thinking about like the exploded essay. How can I break it up into fragments? And then thinking about, I guess, how to bring in some elements of fiction. Obviously, my background as a poet, so there are fictional elements to it. There's one poem, quite an experimental poem. I guess it's drawing a lot on my academic background as well. Like I did my PhD partly on Gertrude Stein, and Gertrude Stein just hovers like a ghost over my writing desk, which I love, but I also like, okay, you can go now. So there's lots of threads to it, but the book itself is called Hiding Places, and so I use that as a kind of, that was an idea I had a long time ago about writing about hiding, which came from some research, and this is another thread in the book, some research I did into my grandfather, who was at Queen Mary Hospital in Hanmer in the 60s.
I've worked there.
Have you? Wow.
Yeah, amazing summer job one time, yeah.
Oh, wow, what a place.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a damn shame that it's still not it was a residential recovery centre for alcoholism and drug. Yeah, boy, do we need those places now. But now it's just languishing and empty, right? Yeah, I was, it was going strong then, and it was an incredible. I was on paper, I was an occupational therapy aide, but I got to go to all the groups and everything. It was, it was phenomenal.
Amazing.
Sorry.
So my grandfather was sent there due to nervous. What would they call it then? It was a nervous breakdown, but they didn't call it that then. So he was there with a lot of return servicemen.
Probably would have been post-traumatic stress if you're going to give a modern label to it.
Well, he didn't go to war though.
Oh,
he was a farmer in the South Waikato.
Yeah.
He got out of going to the war for medical reasons, but I think they also needed farmers in New Zealand. And so there was all this, I started to kind of discover this story in my family of mental illness, essentially, and that it was kind of hidden. Like when I asked my father about it, he said, oh no, he told us that he'd gone on holiday because it was too embarrassing. It was really shameful, and he went all the way from the Waikato down to Hanmer Springs when he could have gone to, I think there was one closer to home, which was Tokonui. It was like 40 minutes down the road, but he went far away because they were strict Baptists. It would have put immense shame on the family. So I just started thinking about what it is to hide. What do we hide culturally, in our families, psychically, personally, intimately? And then all these things, like if you start to think about that, all these things start to come out, and I just kind of keep going.
Fantastic. Yes, I wanted to say, mention that you're born in Putaruru, because that's a real name check at the moment, isn't it, with the new Turner's car ad that you...
Oh, so it is.
Gets its way.
My son loves that ad, actually.
Yeah, no, it's it's back on the map.
It was always on the map, wasn't it?
Yes, but I mean in terms of other people knowing where it is, not just people in the region. Right. I think you should give us a reading if you if you'd be happy to do
Sure.
that of one of these fragments, because I think that will probably give the vibe to readers.
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a bit about, as I said, there's a bit about Truby King, who was the founder of Plunket, as many people will know. So this passage begins with reference to Truby King. And nothing has titles, it's just all these fragments. In his consideration of national efficiency, King designed innovative methods of feeding and nutrition for infants to reduce the mortality rates and prevent adults from entering insane asylums later in life. Bring up a child healthy and normal, make him vigorous, give him a good body, and the probability is that he will never enter an asylum. In other words, all the work is done in those early days. The suckling child will never question him or herself, especially if he or she has been given a strict feeding timetable and learns very early that crying will be of no use. That's that, then, he or she will conclude. In the interests of national efficiency, I will not cry. Her son is almost 3 and, like most children his age, prefers nakedness. The bad mother loves to stare at his little body, and she thinks he is the most beautiful thing she's ever seen. Taut, proportionate, with soft milky skin and still a few remnants of the infant. It's a good little body we have given him, she thinks to herself. It's such a good body that he should never end up in an asylum.
Gosh, there's just a lot of tension within that, isn't there? Because there's the prescriptive model, which, Plunket were all about, 4-hour feeds, that kind of thing. And then, leaving them to cry, that kind of thing. And then you've got the sort of tenderness and vulnerability of a young child that you can really feel.
Mm. Yeah, which is such a confusing time, right? Like, with so much conflicting information. And I've used Truby King's 1913 book, The Feeding and Care of Baby, which is the foundations of Plunket. I've taken extracts from that and I use them as kind of chapter breaks. And I haven't changed anything in them. I just wanted to show what some of that language was. And obviously Plunket has changed and morphed over the years, but I wanted to show what the seeds of that was. Largely because, I came to motherhood, not knowing what I was doing, like many, many people. And then suddenly getting all this advice. Like, I remember the midwife coming over and saying, "Why is he not asleep?" And I'm thinking, I don't know how to put him to sleep. Like, what do? Just click your fingers? And she said, "Oh, you just wrap him up and then you tuck him in his bassinet and then you leave the room." And all of my instincts bristled. I just went, I can't do that. And suddenly there's this kind of cataclysmic kind of existential crisis of like, well, that's the expert. She's telling me to do this thing. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. And then just kind of, ongoing from there. And then he was a terrible sleeper. So we thought, we'll get a sleep consultant. And there was just all the industry that came with that, all the Googling in the middle of the night. Like, why is my child not sleeping? All the tricks you try and learn, like feed them porridge, or do the, what was the other one? Phantom feeding, or where you don't wake them up, you just feed them while they're asleep, and then put them back, put them back in the cot. Or the co-sleeping, and Truby King was really against that. So there's this whole section of never put the baby in the bed, and that was the only thing that I could survive with, So I was like, what? How is this working? And then thinking about some of these ideas of empire and national efficiency, and he was trying to make these strong, resilient, productive individuals, and thinking, well, that I don't want to do that. I'm not preparing my child for war. I want to make him a strong person, but I'm not making him productive. Like, that's not what we're doing here, So just questioning some of those foundations, and then obviously there's conversations with my mother, and asking her about her mother and things that were handed down, and just how those things have shifted. And I was brought up in Putaruru, so thinking about my mother's situation when she had me, and I was the youngest of 3 girls. There was no internet. She had no information. She just had the Plunket nurse that would turn up once a week and say, "Yep, good. done.
Yeah.
And then talking to other women of that generation and going, them saying, I just didn't tell the Plunkett nurse what I was doing. Like, there's all these secrets, it's so interesting to me.
And I get the sense too that having a child made you reflect on the sort of the line, as it were. You're looking forward and back at the same time.
Yeah, so there's the kind of, what do we inherit through the intergenerational kind of embodiments, I guess, memories. There's also a thread of conversations with my therapist where I'm doing a lot of reflection on this. And just trying to understand what is it that I'm handing over. And I'm not going to get it right. I'm messing it up all the time. But hopefully my son will read this book one day and think, well, at least she tried.
I'm sure he will. Now, so that's kind of at the heart and core, those questions and that exploration of hiding places. What I want to know is how you got anything written in terms of all the other calls on your time. So you started it then, sometimes in the middle of the night, and really was it the fragment approach that was the only approach that was viable?
Absolutely, yeah. Even when I was pregnant, I had a really hard pregnancy, and I didn't want to write. I didn't feel like it, So I just do these little bursts, and that's all I could manage. And then obviously when the baby came, there was no time. And then, all these other demands on my time, like I went back to teaching when he was 3 months old, so I was teaching part-time. It was really just snatched moments whenever I could.
And is that still the case now with anything that you produce creatively? Because, you're in your day jobs, and we'll come on to that in another chat. But you're essentially a midwife, thing we're in the talking about mothers and babies, to other people's creativity. Now, how does that impact on yours? Where do you find the silence and the time to have your own voice?
Definitely a conscious carving out of space. Well, I haven't written anything new, for a while. And this year has kind of been crazy and is getting crazier. So this book, I would have finished this book probably 2 years ago, and I've been finessing and editing it since then. And that's slightly more comfortable for me as a place to be in. So now I'm on the precipice of, the book's about to come out and then I'll have nothing. So we have to start again, That's a bit scarier. Right now it's like, it's okay, I've written a book.
Yes, you've got tangible, something tangible.
Exactly.
Look at that, I've done something. That's interesting, isn't it? Because, book launches are a time of celebration, but
there's grief.
And then there's a scary, there's the blank page after that.
Yeah. But, I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in with my job, and that next year I'll go on sabbatical for 6 months. So that's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. So if I can get through to this time next year, I'll have more space. It's really, I remember a friend saying to me after I had my son, I was really frustrated because I loved having like a day in the garden, and she would say, well, just do an hour, or just do 10 minutes. And I'd think, no, I don't want to do that. I want to have a whole stretch, but I've actually just adjusted. So I think kind of hour ahead, like I've got an hour. What can I do? Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Gertrude Stein, and I know when you were part of your MA, and boy, have you had an interesting trajectory from Pataruru to Belfast University and then back here working very solidly at Otago University. What other poetic influences are very strong for you?
Gertrude Stein, I guess she hangs around for all her sins. There's a point in this book where I say I've been Gertrude Steined. But more close to home, reading for Landfall, as I do with another hat on, there is so much good poetry being written in Dunedin, in New Zealand. and teaching as well. It fills me up, fills my cup all the time. Like last week, we had a session with Moana Baker, and she asked us all to bring in our favourite poems. So we had this hour-long session about talking about our favourite poems, and so we read Bukowski and Seamus Heaney and Raymond Carver and Sylvia Plath, and these moments of like, oh yeah, these are the people, Vincent O'Sullivan, he's a real touchstone for me. He was a dear friend, but his work is amazing. I'm rereading his short stories at the moment because I've been asked to write about one of them. So, the work-life thing doesn't really exist.
No.
It bleeds.
Yeah, it's a continuum.
Yeah. But, I mean, I do a lot of reading is for work, but it's not work, I love it. I love the reading. I've just read Nicole Flattery's book, who's the Irish writer in residence at the moment. Excellent book. Definitely recommend.
Trying to get her on the show, actually. Yeah, I'm pursuing that as we speak. Excellent. Well, that's really, really good, Lynley. So your creative practice is in bits and pieces?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't mean it's falling apart. I mean, that's how you tend to sort of... Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how I approach. Yeah. I think also the screen stuff, right? Like getting away from the screen, whether that's going for a walk or going to Pilates or gardening, or I've recently, in the last couple of years, been doing a bit of pottery, and I think it's just an antidote. Like,
the physicality of doing something with your hands.
Absolutely.
Gets you out of your head.
And not looking at the screen, just staring into space. It's a real palate cleanser.
Right. Before we wrap up, there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about. One is the collaborative work that you did for your third publication with Saskia Leek, who has, then went on to be one of last year's Arts Laureates. Wasn't that fantastic? She is a Dunedin painter. So tell us about how that came about, that the book bordering on the miraculous, and what was it like working so closely with someone else?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Saskia reached out to me because she was paired with Bill Manhire, actually, in that Kōrero series with Massey University Press, and he pulled out for some reason, and so I like to say, sloppy seconds. But Saskia's, we've got mutual friends, and we've hung out a bit. So she reached out to me, and I'd just not long had my son, and I was thinking, I'd never write anything ever again. So this invitation came, and I thought, well, this is kind of perfect. And she, I knew her well enough to say, I don't know how to tie my shoelaces right now. And she's like, don't worry, just bring the baby, come over, we'll drink tea. And we did, and that's kind of how it was done. She'd started the project when I came on board, so she had a box full of paintings. So I just had them, and I kept them on the kitchen table, out of reach of the child. And when he'd get sleep, or if my partner took him out for a walk or something, I'd just open this box and I'd just write to these paintings, and then I would give her poems, and then she'd do more paintings. And then it was just back and forth like that. And it was such a pleasure. It was like I actually gave that book to Moana Baker last week. And it's such a nice thing to do, because it's not like, hey, look at me and my poetry. It's like, hey, look at this beautiful art. And there's some poems in there. And it's a beautiful book. I really love it.
Sounds like you had obviously a great friendship, but the trust levels must have just grown and grown between the two of you, did they?
Yeah, I mean, she's a mother as well. She was going through a really tough time. She had a cancer scare during that time, also so a family death in the family. So big life things were happening for us both. So we didn't hide any of that. It's in there, in kind of abstract ways, I guess. Yeah, but there was trust, definitely. Yeah.
I'm just so impressed with your discipline, Lynley, because it just sounds like, are you what do they call an active relaxer?
Yes.
Yes, you sound like you would be, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to relax, really. I think I've learnt that from my parents. If I've learnt anything, it's why, that thing my father says, why save it for tomorrow if you can do it today. Sometimes I'm just too tired, I'm pretty tired most of the time. But yeah, active relaxing is the thing.
Right. So that's Hiding Places, which will be launched very shortly in September the
18th.
18th. Yeah, brilliant. And it's by Otago University Press. They're the publisher. Is it going to be at UBS or is it?
UBS, yeah.
Thought as much. Yeah. Excellent. Usual venue. And before we wrap this up, and it's been great talking to you, I've just virtually thrown questions out the window. We've just been, riffing here, which has been great. I asked you to choose a Kiwi song. Can you tell us what you've chosen and why you've chosen it?
Yeah, tricky task, Beverly. It's a bit like the favourite poem thing. Narrowing it down to a Kiwi artist was helpful, and then I thought, well, I'm just going to narrow it further and make a Dunedin artist my choice. So I've chosen Made Up in Blue by the Bats, just because I love it, I guess. What else can I say about it? Robert Scott has an art shop in Port Chalmers, so I see him a little bit sometimes. He also teaches art, or has done in the past, and has taught at the school my son is at. And my son really likes the Bats. He went through a Dunedin sound stage when he was about 4, so we would blast the song in the car, and it was great. It's such a good driving song. Real piece of Dunedin history, I think.
Excellent. Let's hear it. You're listening to Right On, and I'm speaking with Dr. Lynley Edmeades. Now more about her day job, and I say that in inverted commas, and I should say day jobs plural. But primarily, what we're talking about today is you as the editor of Landfall, which is a role that you've had for the last 4 years, and also your role as a lecturer within the English department. But let's concentrate on Landfall for now. I mean, how exciting and intense is that role? I feel like your inbox would just be exploding.
It's pretty amazing. It's an amazing privilege, actually. It's so fortunate that it's supported or administered by Otago University Press. So there is people in there working behind the scenes that do amazing work. Mel Stevens and Fiona Moffat. Meg Hamilton does the publicity, and Bex Newnham does all the admin. And there's obviously Sue Wotton at the helm there. And it means I don't have to do any emails, which is amazing. Everything goes to the Landfall inbox. They print it all off and they give it to me. I read it and then I combine one document that is my choice, and then I give it back to them and they do the rest. I do proofreading, like I've just read a proof of the big 250 issue we've got coming out. And there's all the other bits and pieces that come in it, but generally I'm really grateful that there's no admin involved.
Am I understanding that you don't sort of have to enter into the personal correspondence of, look, I'm sorry, we can't take this piece? Because that is, I mean, Dunedin is a home of a lot of poets. Some people you know personally, of course, you'll know other writers around the country who are submitting and things like that. Yeah. So they help you sort of carry that load, which means that you can make your decisions more easily?
Yeah, it is easier. I mean, I don't have to do the "I'm sorry, I can't publish your poem" email. Sometimes I will send a personal email just because I might have asked for some poems, or I think they're kind of close to being on the edge of publishing, or I just can't find space for it. So not to discourage people. We get so many submissions that there's just no way I can fit them all in. So I don't want to discourage people from submitting, but there's also a case of representation. You know, I tried to make sure lots of voices are represented. There's always a lot of the same people submitting, so I think, well, sometimes actually you can have a session off, even though they might be great poems. So I might, if I see someone, you know, at a reading or a book launch, I'll say, "Oh, sorry, I couldn't quite fit it in this time, but send me something next time." Trying to be a good person, I guess.
Oh, no, it's just fairness. And also you want diversity, don't you? You want geographical diversity. You want, all the other kinds of diversity as well. And sometimes issues have got themes or something like that too. So that already sets parameters. I guess as well as how intense it is, I also wonder when you first took it on how intimidating, if you can think back, those 4 years ago, how intimidating it was, following on from some pretty impressive previous editors, Emma Neal, David Eggleton, right back to, of course, the founding editor, the legendary Charles Brash, in 1947. And that's, that's really the focus of us talking today too, isn't it? Is that huge milestone of the 250th issue in October, nearly 80 years of continuous publication of this periodical. So tell us about this 250th issue.
So it is a big special occasion. We're making quite an event of it. We're launching the bilingual name, which is Landfall Tauraka, which was gifted to us by the Office of Māori Development. And Tauraka means landing place. So there's a lovely synchronicity there. And I think that just reflects the moment that we're at. Like, I think actually we're probably behind the times. Like it's the thing that the more I learn about Charles Brash, the more I learn that the more I think he would be happy with these developments. Actually, I think he wanted a writing for New Zealand, of New Zealand, and I think that's what we try to hold. Paying homage to that tradition, but also looking forward. Well, what does it mean to be a New Zealand writer today? And there are lots and lots of different ways of doing that. There's no one voice that should govern over others.
How important do you think Landfall is in terms of New Zealand creative and critical expression? And you can give your fully biased answer.
Well, and the fact that it's print is quite important, I think. And that's what differentiates it from a lot of what we see, what we read elsewhere.
Especially as time's gone on, that's become even more so, hasn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's a beautiful object, right? So people still want that, I think. I think it still means something to writers. With this 250 issue, I'm also launching a craft interview. So a series of interviews with writers. So in the first one, I've interviewed Bill Manhire, and I asked him that question, like, what did it mean to have your first poem published in Landfall in 1968, I think it was. And for him, it meant he was a real writer, capital R, capital W. It was the same for me. I had what we call the Landfall curse for a long time. I was rejected a lot before I got in there. I think I was very lucky taking over the editorship from Emma Neal, because Emma is, as we know, an incredible person, very generous and thoughtful and caring. And I was able to have conversations with her about it. So she passed the baton in a way, which was really, it was really helpful. I felt supported in that. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I think, far out. Charles Brash, and all these writers, in the history of Landfall, and I don't even know, I haven't even scratched the surface. I can't pretend to know all of it. I think it's an amazing document, and this moment in Landfall, the 250 issue, I think part of the reason why we're celebrating it so much is because it's been this ongoing document. Like, what does that tell us about ourselves? As a country, as a nation, as a culture? We can map our whole culture since 1947 through this document, which is really remarkable.
Changes in attitudes, changes in language.
Yep.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. And in fact, don't just take Lynley's word for that, for, like her impressions of Landfall, because lots of people have, it means so much to so many people and for different reasons. And as you say, that real writer thing, I know people that absolutely aspire to be in Landfall as a kind of benchmark tick. Okay, I'm good enough. I can keep going. So that's a really significant thing for people. And this is what you're going to be reflecting on, Landfall's heritage, Landfall's current impact in a special symposium, which is, I think, the day before or day after Landfall. The 250th issue comes out. Can you talk about the symposium?
Yeah, so the day after the launch, we're launching on a Thursday night, and then the Friday is the symposium. So it's really me straddling that space between Landfall editor and academic. I managed to get some funding through the university to hold this symposium. So I'm bringing a few people down from Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch, previous editors. Tina Makareti, who judged the Landfall essay competition this year, she's going to speak about that. It's really a chance for us to get together and think about what this document means to us, how it's changed, what should we be doing in the future to keep it going, essentially. It's not a given that it will keep going because of things like Creative New Zealand funding, subscriptions, things like that.
Cost of living.
The cost of living, absolutely. So where to from here? And also, what does it mean? What does Landfall mean to us as writers, as editors, as academics, as New Zealanders, I think?
That's going to be a really, a very rich day of who's who of the literary circle in some ways, but also the great thing about it is that it's accessible, it's free, and it's at the Otago Museum, the lecture theatre in there, isn't it?
Yeah, the Barclay Theatre. Yeah.
So you don't have to, talking about you being intimidated taking over the editorship, you don't have to be intimidated to go along to that day because there will be some very interesting talks.
There'll be, there'll be writers, there'll be editors, academics as well, talking about different influences on Brash, different moments in Brash's life. Philip Temple's reached out to me and he's got some stories to tell, Everyone has a Landfall story and that's what I find so interesting, and we're kind of making, I guess the symposium will be like a collage. We've kind of put all these stories together in the room and get a bigger idea of the bigger picture, I guess.
Yeah, it's a eulogy.
It is a bit, but they haven't died. No. Hopefully. It's just a moment in time.
No, I'm trying to think of, sorry, eulogy wasn't quite the right word. I was trying to think of that word where you kind of do it before, like it's a celebration. Absolutely a celebration.
Festschrift? Is that the word? Festschrift?
It is now. Lynley, you're the editor of Landfall. If you say that's what it is, that's what it is. Excellent, great. So that's the 250th issue and the Landfall Symposium, and they're both in the middle of October, and we very much look forward to those. So, you've got a big workload ahead of that, but as you say, you've just got to get to the end of this year and then you can take a breather. So, and if that's all not enough, and it certainly sounds enough to me, you've also the coordinator of the new Masters of Creative Writing at the University of Otago. Now, that's a new initiative. Mm-hmm. How's it going?
You should probably ask my students.
Well, who are your students? I mean, you've got how many you've got of them, and
we've got 8 students this year. There is a cap, so it's limited enrolment for pedagogical reasons. It's a workshop based course, so we meet once a week for 3 hours, and we're usually workshopping each other's work. So at the moment, it's delivered in a hybrid model. So we've got a couple of people who move around the country, one who lives in Christchurch, one's in the Wairarapa, and they do come down periodically if they're having their work looked at, for example. But of those 8, there's, I think, 5 novelists and 3 poets. A couple of people are working in kind of hybrid spaces. So I wouldn't say poet or novelist, but they're moving between. One student's writing an anti-novel, which is very much pushing against the tradition of the novel. And these students, we meet together once a week during term time, and then they all have their own supervisors that I've assigned them to. And a couple of them are supervised internally with myself and Liam McElvenny, so he teaches with me. But given the riches that we have in Ōtewhoti, I've also reached out to the community and have brought in writers to be supervisors as well. So people like Diane Brown and Lawrence Fernley.
So a lot of matchmaking.
Yeah, and that was super fun. It was really fun, actually. And watching the students work with their supervisors and kind of come back and say, oh, it's so great. I mean, we haven't had any disaster stories yet, so touch wood.
Any divorces?
No. No, really fun.
No, because the supervisor, I mean, it's incredibly important. And, I mean, it obviously is doing well because you've got enrolments for next year. Yeah.
Well, enrolments are open at the moment.
Yeah.
They close on the 1st of November. So,
Right.
Yeah. So there's lots of inquiries. Yeah. I think the word's starting to get out. I mean, there was an article in The Listener a month or so ago about creative writing programs, and they didn't mention Otago. So I was like, oh, well, that's not going to help. But actually, I think word is getting out. Like, people are starting to learn about it and hear about it. And I think the students that are doing it now will
be advocates.
Will testify.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's more information on the Otago University, the English department's website and pages and stuff. If you kind of didn't know about it or might be thinking about it, or I mean, it's just a question of emailing you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the kind of point of contact.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
great. Well, that's I think that's a terrific new initiative. And
it kind of needed to happen. I think.
And I think it needed to happen in Dunedin as the city of literature too.
Yeah,
I think that just gives another kind of anchor to that that status.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Lynley, we could talk more and more about, all the various things that you're doing and how hard you're working and how much you're juggling.
I've got a note in my diary for October the 20th that just says, lie down and die. Which just means that take a few days off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, catch your breath. Well, thanks again for coming in. Wish you all every success and long live Landfall. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you. Kia ora.
And now, in a related change of focus, because of course Lynley is involved in this as well, and that is the Young Writers Festival, which is on in Dunedin this weekend. So, for more about that, I'm going to replay the lively chat that OAR FM's awesome breakfast host Jeff Harford had with the festival's co-director Kate Schrader recently. And that details, this interview that you'll hear now, details all the ways that you can get in amongst it, and that's regardless of your age. So don't be put off by the title of it being a Young Writers Festival. Of course, that's the focus. But anybody of any age can attend the sessions. So let's hear about it now.
Time now for us to look ahead to something very special. The New Zealand Young Writers Festival is not far away. Saturday the 13th, Sunday the 14th of September, this celebration. Now in its 11th year, we thought we'd take an opportunity to look ahead with Kate Schrader, co-director, who joins us now. Lovely to have you with us, Kate. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Now, we talked a little bit earlier in the year about what's planned for this year's festival, and that we can remind our listeners about. It starts with a magnificent hui. You've got that lined up. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So this year, we're really built on previous festivals, and last year in particular, an observation made by our kaupapa Māori liaison, Jessica Latin, lovely local lady and amazing theatre practitioner and creative, that the festival really feels like a wānaka, and that there's a real opportunity to lean into that. And last year, a big focus for us was increasing our observation of tikanga in the festival spaces. So we just thought, that's such a great suggestion. Why not lean into it? So that's what we're doing. This year from the Wednesday to the Friday in the lead up to the festival, all the young writers who've been invited to be part of the festival will join us at Puketeraki Marae for 3 days of kind of upskilling and connection and kind of building up their creative wairua.
Have you had good connection with that? They've lots of sign-ups?
Yeah, we did. Well, we're doing things a little differently this year in that usually we would be paying for all of the travel, all of the accommodation, and we are still contributing to that. But this year we asked the writers coming from out of town to contribute too. And we were nervous about that because it's not really how we've done things before. It's different to the kaupapa that we try to set of making it as easy as possible and dropping financial barriers. But we had more sign-ups than we could accommodate. So, people are hungry for these kind of experiences. Tangata whenua, tauiwi, Pakeha. It's really been amazing to see how hungry people are.
I mean, what's going to be fascinating about this is who knows what might come out of it, right?
Right. It's totally new ground for us. But the people who are supporting us, like we're adopting this year a tuakana tēnā model, like, but, you know, big sibling, younger sibling, I guess it's like the literal translation, but it's about supporting one another. And so we have tuakana for the festival staff, and that's Anthony Deaker and Jessica Latin, who we worked with last year. And then we have tuakana for the writers as well. Josiah Morgan, Ruby Makoma and Rohina Scott-Fife, who are all incredible young writers themselves, have been part of the festival before. So they know the old format, but they also see the opportunity for what we could be kind of developing this year. And it's really their space to lead, not ours. That's really exciting.
Well, so that's going to lead into the more formal program, if we put it that way. So for those of us who won't be part of the wānaka, but are very much looking forward to what else the program has to offer, give us a bit of a taster of what's lined up.
Sure, love to. So we have 6 events this year in the festival. It's condensed down just to Saturday and Sunday. So we kick off on Saturday morning with, it's a bit of a staple of the New Zealand Young Writers Festival, partnering with Motif Poetry to deliver the Slam poetry workshop, and then later in the evening, the Otago Poetry Slam Champs 2025. That is always a sellout event. It is such an incredible energy in the room, you know, all these passionate slam poets getting together to strut their stuff. So we have a workshop in the morning with Amy, Grace Laura, who is from Motif Poetry, and leads the event in the evening to help people who maybe want to give it a crack but feel like they need a little bit of a nudge or a little bit of skill building. So that's at 10 a.m. on Saturday at Te Whare Orukatea. All of these events are at Te Whare Orukatea, by the way, on Princes Street, opposite Subway. The next event that morning is one of our tuakana for the festival, who I mentioned before, Ruby Makoma. Ruby actually was the curator of the festival last year and the writer-in-residence the year before. So she has a long history with this festival and a very, very impressive a set of skills and background as a writer. So she is sharing those skills with another workshop, Tupuna Talk, Writing Where We Come From. It's a really special opportunity. You can read more about it on our website. And then in the evening is an opportunity to come and hear from all the young writers who are attending the wānaka at Puketaraki Marae. Everyone will be sharing a piece of their own writing with the public. So it's kind of a open mic, but only for the writers who are at the wānaka. That's going to be led by one of our other tuakana, Josiah Morgan, who himself is an incredible performer. He was, you may remember him from Dunedin Fringe this year doing Julius Caesar, a 2-person Julius Caesar, famously not a 2-actor play. And Josiah is going to be leading some at the wānaka voice work and body work to really help these young writers prepare for that event in the evening.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's also being supported by UNESCO City of Literature, so there'll be some beautiful kai available for everybody who comes along to that event to enjoy. And then, of course, I mentioned the Slam Champs. That's our late night event, 8 till 10. That's really dynamic, fun, quite spicy event. So really encourage you to come along to that one too. And if you want to compete, there's only 12 spots. So, sign up sooner rather than later.
You can sign up now?
Yes, you can. You just need to email amy@motifpoetry.co.nz or just head to our website, New Zealand youngwritersfest.nz, I should say. And then that's the end of Saturday. Next morning at 10 a.m. we have another really beautiful workshop. This one's being led by our third tuakana, Rohina Scott-Fife, and their sibling Tōrea together. Now, Rohina and Tōrea whakapapatu Puketaraki Marae. So it's really special that Rohina will be one of our tuakana helping us hold that space and kind of welcoming all of our rakatahi, kaituhi, our young writers, to their marae. And then during the festival, you have an opportunity to work with these incredible, talented young writers on rock, paper, scissors, moka awatai, a grounding place in your writing practice. Where is home? How do I respectfully acknowledge whenua? How do I ground my imaginary worlds in the here and now? That'll be a really fantastic workshop. And then we finish up with publishing an Aotearoa Today, an Insider's Guide. This is one that we've had a lot of requests for, Jeff.
Right. Why?
I think because I'm not a writer myself, but the observations often made to us is that publishing, it's quite opaque. Like, people don't know how to crack it. They don't know where to start to get into the industry, how to start building up that portfolio, which then begets more opportunities. So we've invited a lineup of amazing writers, publishers, and some who are both, to do this panel. It's going to be emceed by the amazing Lynley Edmeades from the very own University of Otago. Kitty Brown, who you may recognise from Dunedin Writers and Readers Festival, our sister festival coming up in October. Please check out their program, which I think is dropping very soon. Josiah, one of our amazing tuakana, and then Louise Wallace from Starling, which is an online literary journal focused on young people. So really amazing perspectives, all different entry points into that world. So that'll be an awesome kōrero, I reckon. And that's it.
Well, that's a busy 2 days, plus, of course, the leading into it as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And we keep making this point. It is New Zealand Young Writers Festival, but it's not solely for the young, Kate.
Man, tō toko, Jeff. It is for everyone. So if you are a seasoned reader, a budding writer, you someone who's interested in the literary future of Aotearoa, or you want to hear from the next generation that are going to be kind of leading us forward, then this is a festival for you. It's also free. So there's no barrier for you to attend. Now, you need to book tickets, but they are free to book online. You can also pay what you want if you want to support this festival and the work that Dunedin Fringe Arts Trust does to keep going.
Right.
Yeah. Tell
us about our 2025 Writer in Residence.
Yes, we haven't talked about Nick. So this is really exciting. It's a partnership that we have with the Robert Lord Writers' Cottage. Each year there is a writer in residence for the festival in partnership between us and them. And this year we're so thrilled that it's someone local. Nick Tipa is a local actor, writer, artist, and he presented his first, I think, solo piece that he wrote himself with support from dramaturg Bronwyn Wallace in the Dunedin Fringe Festival this year called Babyface, and it swept the floor in terms of the awards. You know, it was nominated for a lot. It also had a sold-out season. Nick's doing some really amazing things, and he applied for this residency with a new idea that I won't spoil. I think he's going to talk a little bit about that during the festival.
And that's our show. So my heartfelt thanks to my guests, Lynley Edmeades, Jeff Harford and Kate Schrader, and of course the University Bookshop for all their ongoing support. Ka kite, catch you next month.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.